So as you're making these watches, you're putting new movements in them, and you're taking these out into the field. Something interesting happens, right? Somebody reaches out to you about a very specific project that is right up your alley. So what's that
Yeah.
about?
So I had been marketing all my stuff through Facebook, which is where most of the reenacting community takes place and the living history community. And turns out that a very important prop master for a very important show um, reached out and said, "Hey, can you build me this custom watch?" Um,
Yeah,
that show happened to be The Last of Us.
great show.
Um, I really enjoyed it. I might be a little bit biased, but I really enjoyed it. And
Did you play the games at all?
I watched my brother play the games. We kind of like did a family get together and played the games. When they had come out, I was still living at home and everything like that. And
Oh, sure.
um, so yeah, I'd played the game a little bit, but I'd watched the game and kind of such a story centric video game, and so you can
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
like
watch it
watching a
like a
movie.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was familiar with the games, and when he had sent that, I was like, I didn't recognize it immediately. Funnily enough, he had sent a picture of they did a limited release of like 1,000 watches for the I think it was like the 10th anniversary.
Yeah, so
Um,
it was through like a another brand made, like another like Japanese brand or something made them, right?
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
He had sent a picture of that, and I didn't fully recognize it, and it immediately kind of reminded me of like British military watch design, which I
Yeah.
think is the dial is fairly inspired by some of the um, particularly military watches and all across the board. But um, I was like, man, I wonder if it's a British military watch. And then he sent me an email later that night with his signature. In the email, it said, "Assistant prop master and armor for The Last of Us, HBO." And the next day, I got a non-disclosure agreement to sign until the show released. I couldn't talk about it. And
Yeah, you're like, "Oh my God, it's happening. I've
yeah,
made it." Yeah.
and so yeah, that's how I got started working on that. Is just they were looking for somebody who could build a custom watch, and I just so happened to roll across his Facebook feed, and so
There you go. So, I mean, you were like the perfect choice, obviously. I mean, like they needed something probably that, would hold up for all the filming that they did out in snow and the forests and the mountains and, whatever urban set they were on.
yeah.
And your experience making things that were quite literally field tested
hmm
was kind of a perfect match. So, what was that fabrication process like? I mean, did you have to actually source the components, or did you just kind of like guide them on how to make it?
I sourced all the components and I built most of the watches myself, and then I mailed them to Canada from Texas.
Wow.
And so we started out building a couple of prototypes. We went through, I think, 3 or 4 different designs. They were like, let's do screen tests with them. We want to test them out on the actor and everything like that. And so they wanted to go through a couple different designs, and then one of the big things that we had discussed was coin edge versus not coin edge. It's kind of difficult to source, particularly on the when you're not working directly with a manufacturer or something like that. I'm sourcing all
Hmm.
this stuff off of, Seiko modding community and all that stuff.
Yeah, right, right, right.
It's uh, it's kind of difficult to source a coin edge watch case that has the correct profile.
Sure.
Um, and so we went through a couple of different design changes. One of the things that might be interesting to talk about as well is that the watch movement in the game can't really function the way like actually function properly
Right,
because
because
there's a
it's
center second hand, a sub second hand, but there's no buttons or pushers to activate the
yeah,
chronograph.
yeah. Very clearly, the Last of Us developers for the games did not know a whole lot about watches, I guess.
Yeah, and so and that was something that was also discussed. do we add that extra second hand, or do we, you know, how does it? We were going to add the sub second hand dial for sure,
Mm-hmm.
but how important was that extra second hand in the center? And so
Sure.
it was really kind of interesting to me to think all the stuff that they were talking about of like, okay, we got to make this decision and this decision and this decision on the tiniest details. And so we had finally settled on a design, and funnily enough, I had a Timex Weekender watch case that I don't even remember where I got it. Might have been in a lot of broken watches. Like, this has a pretty good profile for it.
Yeah.
So I took the Timex Weekender case and I built them a watch in the Timex Weekender case. And it was because they've got a 38 and a 40 millimeter version of that, I think. I think it was the 40 millimeter. And they said, hey, can we get that in a smaller diameter? So all of the watches that were made were in the 38 millimeter one, because they just said it didn't look quite as good on his wrist in the 40 millimeters.
We're gonna see sales of the 38 millimeter Timex Weekender spike now after this podcast comes out. Everyone's going out and make their own Last of Us watch.
Yeah.
Very cool. So Timex case, and then the dial and the hands were just an assortment of things you already had, or just bought off the internet.
So I had been sourcing those sword hands, or I guess they're not really sword hands, but that kind of
sword style.
Yeah, sword style hand for A11s. Because the A11 has a similar watch, similar hand. And so I had some on hand, and I was like, okay, perfect. They're pretty much the same style. I had to hand paint them because I couldn't find any for, which funny enough, like a couple of weeks after I started, or after I shipped out all the watches, I started being able to find the exact style that I needed, but
yeah, of course, yeah, that's always how it goes, right?
But yeah, so I hand painted these hands that I had sourced online, and the graphics were done by my brother, who's a graphic designer. I said, hey, can you redesign this for me? And he was like, yeah, don't worry about it. And so then we just printed them out on like a vinyl material, so it was easy to transfer.
Sure.
Peeled the old Timex like label, because they're printed on like a vinyl with a sticky back or something like that.
Sure.
So I just peeled it off, stuck mine on there, punched the holes, and sandwich everything together.
There you go, and that's the Last of Us watch.
Mm-hmm.
So you send the watches off, your finished product, your babies, all go off to Canada for filming, and then was that it? Did they just send it off, or did you have any more involvement, any issues or anything down the road?
So for the most part, that was, or at least that was supposed to be it. One of the interesting things that happened over the course of the shipping process is somewhere in between here and Alberta, the stems of the watches would just pull right out.
The crown stems.
Yeah. And on the working ones, because they needed, if I recall, it was 3 working ones that they had ordered, and they would just pull right out, which didn't make a lot of sense to me. It kind of seems to me like maybe customs or something like that had gone in there, was checking it out, and was like, I don't like this, it's not pulling out, and then they would like force it out. I don't know. I don't fully know what happened in between there. So I built them another 2, sent them, same issue was happening. No matter what I did, no matter how much I packed them, the same issue was happening. And it was like blowing my mind, because this is kind of a funny story. They had mentioned, and I kind of was made aware of this, is like, yeah, we're going to need to do stunts. We're going to need to do all this stuff. They need to be rugged.
Sure, yeah.
And of course, rugged is a part of my, the reason
part
I started
of your MO,
watches.
Yeah.
And so, like, I had dug out some old boxing gloves that I had and stuff like that, and I just started, like, going through fake stunts to just kind of run it through its paces. And um, and they worked. I don't understand. Still don't know to this day what happened between here and Canada, but um,
Don't know. You must have gotten Pedro Pascal just like pulls the crown out. He's like, I don't know, guys, it's not working
yeah,
anymore. Something like that.
yeah. I don't know what happened. All the broken ones were fine, um, and this went on for like a week or so, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and
Yeah.
I think eventually they might have hired a watchmaker up in Canada to. I sent them all the parts to build them,
Mm-hmm.
movements, hands, dials, cases, everything.
Sure.
And so I think they might have got a watch builder up in Canada to assemble them, for the
Interesting.
working
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
But all the broken ones are ones that I built. Um, and so, and then after that, that was kind of it, and I had to just sit on my hands and go like, okay, you can't tell anybody about this for a year, you know.
Yeah. So when you were watching the series, then how many times did you pause and get up off the couch and be, look, there it is. There's the watch.
So many times.
Yeah.
When the first trailer released, like it was it was crazy because I was like, man, with all that stuff that happened with it, man, I hope they didn't replace all my watches and everything like that. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but I watched the first trailer that they released, and it was that opening shot of or one of the opening shots was a picture. Was a shot of the watch, and I was like, oh my
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
gosh, I
You're
can't
like, there
believe
it
it.
is. Yeah.
I was totally not cool about it. I was freaking out. I was, um, that was
I
just a
mean,
very surreal moment.
yeah, that's very very cool. I love when these kind of serendipitous moments happen, or it's kind of a sign that you're kind of doing like what you're supposed to be doing in the
Yeah,
space. When cool things happen and when opportunities show up. So that's really cool, and it also helps that it was a pretty darn good TV show with
yeah,
some great actors in it, and renewed for at least another season coming
hmm
out soon. So if nobody out there listening to this show has not seen The Last of Us, it's definitely worth the watch.
yeah,
It's they say a zombie series that's not about zombies. It's about
hmm
humanity and good and bad and all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Very
And
cool.
the other thing that I love, just kind of from like a watch lover's perspective, is how important the watch is. You know,
Yeah.
it's it's not just a. I think it kind of represents a lot of how a lot of people who collect watches feel. Is that they represent kind of moments in their lives or people that they knew or that kind of thing. And so that's one of the
Yeah.
things that I really I it's it's cool to see a watch represented that way in a
Yeah,
show. And
absolutely. For anybody who hasn't seen it, I mean, the watch ends up getting broken very early on in the series, right? And Pedro Pascal's character just continues to wear it because of what it means to him, even though it's non-functional.